If consumers in the past century could ask agricultural technology one question, it'd probably be something along the lines of this. Why do you build me up, Buttercup? Just to let me down. Except agricultural technology has been building up a lot more than just buttercups. Even though agricultural technology, or scientific modification of food, is thousands of years old, the developments of the past century have given consumers' opinions reason to swing wildly between highs and lows. Because of these drastic high and low swings of opinion, there's overall been a decline in trust. If somebody got your hopes up this high, you'd probably stop trusting them too. But is this present-day low of trust in agricultural technology and all of its benefits justified? By investigating the different swings in the 5 different eras that led to these ups and downs of opinion, we can better understand the justification of the distrust of agricultural technology and just how we should feel about people playing with our food. The story is one of ups and downs, but it had to start somewhere, which turns out to be mildly positive. We might think of agricultural technology such as genetically modified organisms, or GMOs, and pesticides as something of recent times, but actually, they've been around for thousands of years. Keith Delapane of NC State's Integrative Pest Management Department cites the ancient Romans as some of the first to use pesticides. And when Dr. Frank Baumgartner investigated media coverage of pesticides for an unrelated report, he found that it swayed between 100 and 90% positive before 1940. However, that's not hard to achieve when you've only been mentioned in a few random farm magazines. GMOs, as of yet, had not been developed, neither had organics, so all this mild positivity came from these mediocre pesticides. However, people were positive, yet complacent. There was definitely room for improvement, and that improvement would come after World War II. World War II brought amazing technology that also had applications in agriculture, namely pesticides, such as, most famously, DDT. Dr. Frank Baumgartner, in a book related to the report mentioned earlier, also found that media coverage was incredibly high and sung the praises of things such as DDT. As you can see, DDT is good for me. It's because this had phenomenal potential to improve the lives of many people. They thought it was going to bring the end to malaria, the end to world hunger. It brought a very positive surge in public opinion of agricultural technology, and of course a lot of trust. But that wouldn't last. Pesticides plummeted out of favor when there was the first with the first devastation of wildlife and the Great Cranberry Scare of 1959, when the first inedible crop because of pesticide levels, and really severely broke public trust and hopes in agricultural technology. As you can see, it got a lot more media attention, but peaked at 90% negative in the mid-1970s. So with this trust broken, there was at least one thing to bolster it. GMOs were now on the rise. Genetically modified organisms, in their first stages, were simply crossbred plants, which these hybrid plants had the potential to grow in many new environments and led to a boom in food and also population, especially in areas like India. They were known as the Green Revolution, but their potential was limited because these new plants also required more water and fertilizer, and so they could only bring public opinion up so much. If these cause a splash on the display of public opinion, then their descendants would cause an even bigger sway, although not necessarily all positive. When GMOs emerged in their final stage, Stephen Nottingham tells us in his book, Eat Your Genes, that it was only in 1983 that DNA was first inserted into a foreign plant. But in the next 17 years, by the year 2000, the introduction to at-issue genes, genetically engineered foods, tells us that by the year 2000, over 70% of supermarket products contained GMOs. So they were clearly on the rise and in favor of public, but it wasn't without some rockiness. In Europe already, Roberto Verzola's chapter of at-issue genetically engineered foods tells us that people were rejecting them with concerns over cancer and different hormonal problems. And as the New York Times article summarizes, there was some concerns over the weird new crossbred organisms. Would we have things like fish steak? Possibly even weirder things? So the publicity was positive and opinion was too, but rockily so. The next movement would tip that over the edge. Organics emerged as we consider them today and are now considered often the opposite of GMO and pesticide-treated foods. But are they really? Henry Allen and the Life Hackers have summarized this for consumers by citing the FDA. FDA certified organic means that it has an ingredients list. 95% of those ingredients are certified organic. They are free of synthetic additives, not processed with certain solvents or UV, and not genetically engineered. But what it doesn't mean is that they're actually free of pesticides. They are just limited in the levels and types, but can face similar levels of contamination as regular foods. It also doesn't mean that they have no bacterial contamination. In fact, they might have more since they're not actually treated with anything to kill the bacteria in the first place. So, organics aren't exactly the opposite of GMOs and pesticide-treated foods. We can't really use them as the alternative to cast them further into dismay. People don't really understand organics, but it turns out they also don't understand GMOs. In a survey of Europeans in 2003, the introduction to genes on the menu said that over 80% of the public did not understand GMOs and wanted to learn more about them, regardless of whether or not they were in favor of them. So people are passing judgments without necessarily knowing exactly what's going on. We've seen the rise and fall of a public opinion based on agricultural technology because of the primitive pesticides, their more powerful follow-up, the decline once the problems were discovered, the rise of GMOs, and then the fall paired with the rise of organics. So overall, trust has declined, but it's not because people necessarily have solid information in the end to know that agricultural technology is really that bad. This means that we're faced with a problem somewhat like little kids asked to try a new vegetable. Do we reject it right off the bat? Or do we keep our eyes open so that we don't exclude beneficial technology from our lives without really good reason? Consumers need to keep this in mind. So, maybe eat your peas, or at least give them a chance.